Hi, I'm Becky Gromlich, and today we're going to paint this lovely apple blossom. I know a lot of you that are beginners think that you can't possibly paint this, but I teach beginners all the time, and you can paint this, and this is how. Now these color nuances are very pale, and I want to get them right, and so what I do is I use these little homemade squares, and I look at it, and what color of gray is that exactly? And I have a gray made from ultramarine, teeniest bit of yellow, and teeniest bit of pink. And I want to use this brush because it holds a lot of water, and it's easy to get a soft look. And I really want to leave most of this petal white. So I dry my brush on my sponge and soften that edge. And you know, that might not be enough. I might discover that I need a little bit more later. But for this kind of a thing, I certainly would rather go too light. Up here it's more blue, so I added a little blue. And I'm going to soften that edge as well. Back into some of the grayer. And I'm just kind of ignoring the pinks right now. I just want to get this foundation layer in. Soften that edge and that edge. It's a very soft looking petals. I don't want to lose that. Okay, I've cleaned my brush. I'm going to work on these edges, softening them a little bit. Now the next petal, I'm going to try something a little different and show you another way of doing this. So I've made the whole petal wet. And then I'm drying my brush and getting some of the gray, and I'm going to let it run more. Do some wet on wet here. And same thing, softening the edge. I kind of like how that blended, so I'm going to continue in that vein. I love apple blossom time of the year on our property. We have several trees. They smell good, they look pretty. It's just a nice time of the year. If you have any apple blossom memories, I would love to hear them in the comments. Now, if you're nervous about starting, and I often do this even when I'm not nervous about starting, it's good to start on a petal that's a not important one, like maybe this one. And then get your colors and get the feel for the paper and how it's going to work, and then put in your more important colors. So right now it kind of looks like a lot of nothing, but this is a foundation that will help, and then we can get to the fun part of putting the pink in. If you're enjoying this video so far, hit the like button and maybe share it with a friend. Most of this is plain Quin rose except for this one bud. Has actually some orange in it, so I've added a little bit of yellow to my Quin rose, but I don't want it to get orange. So I'm putting two little areas of orange, and then I'll go into the rest with just pink on my brush. Now that brush is kind of big for that little thing, so I'm going to switch over to my Aqua Elite number 10, which it's, 10 sounds like a big brush, but it's actually got such a great point on these. And then up here, it gets quite dark. And so I'm going to just get some thicker paint. And if that's not dark enough, I'll add some alizarin, but I think it'll be okay. I'm getting some sap green on my palette. And I'm going to put this little bit of thing in and get this flower more completely done. Put some of the green back here to make that darker shadow up at the top. You can see I'm kind of letting it run together a bit. When we get to the end, I'm going to do a bouquet background because I want it to be sort of soft and have some pinks and greens in it, like there's some flowers back there, and yet not go to all the trouble of painting all that. So wait till the end if you want to learn how to do bouquet. And when I go back and put the shadows on, this will sort of show this drawing, these lines. Right in there, it's very dark. So those lines might not show. Add some water, move this along. Now this little petal is slightly purpler, so I have some magenta out here. And I'm going to water it way down and just put it on there. This part, I think the fine lines are even magenta, at least at this side. Now, I'm not going to spend this much time on every bud, but this bud's right smack in the front, so it seems like a good idea. I'll get some watered down magenta and fill that in. So step by step, you can paint this. And I'm also going to get that petal wet first. This brush, it's tiny, but it holds a mighty amount of water. So you want to be careful you don't make a flood on there. So that's damp, but it's not very wet. And see, then it spreads it out and you can get that pink glow part without so much effort. I'm going to soften the edges where I need to. And there's a little bit of a pink glow over here, so that's when you get that on and your paper's already dried, get your brush wet and just with clear water bring the paint over. And then we'll wait for this. There's a little bit of a pink blush right here too. And again, the paper already dried. So I'll spread it a different way. A little bit of pink there. And that's enough. We don't want it to get too dark. And this petal definitely didn't get it gray enough. I can see that without using my little squares. And this one has a lot of action up here. Some of it goes down. I don't think I have that quite dark enough. Let's get those darker while they're still damp. And then they fade as they go down here. Drying my brush. I'm letting the water do some of the work for me, but not so much that it takes over. I don't really want to lose total control. I'm going to do some green. Now I've got permanent pale green, sap green, and azo yellow on my palette, and I'm going to start on some leaves. I'm not putting as much detail into the leaves. I don't know where that brown came from. I guess I had some red on my brush or some pink on my brush. And when you put the green around these, then they pop. It's kind of fun. Back in here, you can actually see through the flower to the leaf behind it. Just want to bring that other petal forward a little bit. Now I'm going to do my bouquet. And for that we need a stencil brush. I'm going to use this small size. This is a pretty small painting. And tissues. You'll probably need a lot of tissues. You want to leave your tape on until you're done with that. I'm just going to dip the brush in the water and dry it on my sponge a little bit. And I don't know if you can see that since the camera's straight above. And you just scrub it and lift it off. Now that one didn't get a very sharp edge, but that's okay. Now we're going to go something smaller in here. Some people make all their bouquet all the same size, and if you're doing something like Christmas tree lights, that is appropriate. But for something in nature, I prefer to have them be all different from each other. I want one that brings out the pink here. So I'm going to go easy on that side where there's a leaf. And I like to do 2 or 3 at once. And overlap. Rinse your brush, dry it off again. So it's changing the look of the background. Now, you can't really go over your pink flowers. You're gonna ruin them if you do, so you just go close to them. Let's do a few right here. I'm just scrubbing. I know it's hard to see with the camera straight above like that. And if you want, you can go back in and get your leaves. I'm just not scrubbing the one side of that one. Now this green is proving to be quite stubborn, so you'll have to scrub hard, and if worse comes to worse, you can make bouquet using a Mr. Clean sponge. You can also go back, you can also go in and add color if you want. A little bit of color on your brush, and you can add some color that way. I think I might do that with this pink. And I like to pat them so that they're not quite so bright. We'll get a couple other pinks in here. Kind of like how that looks. Needs to overlap. Right, let's take the tape off and see what we have. One of the things that I didn't do that I always do is a little bit of softening of edges. And this one doesn't need much, but I get a cheap brush because you're kind of pushing against the grain. And then I just soften edges. And you want a tissue for that as well, because it makes your colors run a little bit. And I don't want my petals to get all green. I hope you learned a lot and that you try this painting even if you're a beginner. Happy painting.